everyone, and welcome to another episode of Seed Speaks. My name is Alex Martin, and today I'm absolutely thrilled to be your host. This marks our second week of our Agronomics in Action season. Last week, you heard all about the cost of spraying chemistries, and this week we're flipping to a completely different chemistry, seed treatments, and particularly the stewardship responsibility that comes along with it. So to help us learn a little bit more, we have two fantastic panelists joining us. Matt Lewis, who is chair of the American Seed Trade Association's Seed Treatment Committee and UPL's U.S. Strategic Accounts Lead, and Justine Taylor, who is Director of Stewardship and Sustainability of Croplife Canada. So thank you so much to both of you for joining us. If y'all are okay with it, I'd like to start with some introductions. So Matt, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit more about yourself and giving us the rundown, that would be great.
Yeah, well, thanks, Alex. So I've been part of seed treatment now for a while. And by the way, I apologize for the video here. To the viewers out there, I had to jump on last minute on my cell phone because I couldn't get the computer to work. But I've got a long history in agronomy and in agriculture. Spent the first 10 years of my career working in academia, doing quite a bit with pesticide certification and recertification, and where when a company called Gustafson was around. Later joined up with Bayer and became part of that legacy group. Moved on to BASF and now lead up our sales efforts here at UPL. And along the way have gotten very active with American Seed Trade Association, spending the last 2 years co-chairing or vice-chairing the Seed Treatment Environment Committee, and now just recently taking over that chair position from Carrie Karsten. So it's wonderful to be here and appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and congratulations on that new chairmanship. That is very exciting for you. But next, Justine, we'd like to have you give the scoop on yourself as well, way up from the northern lands of Canada.
Well, I am in the southernmost part of Canada, if that makes a difference. But so I'm relatively new to seed treatment. I started off my career as a chemist and then transitioned over to agriculture. I spent 10 years in the greenhouse sector, really covering a wide variety of topics. As you mentioned, I cover stewardship and sustainability for Croplife Canada. I have been with the organization for about 1.5 years now. And my day-to-day is really a mix of managing our suite of stewardship programs under the Agrochemical Warehousing Standards Association, and then also developing and delivering a sustainability strategy for Croplife. So really trying to focus on how best to position Croplife in the sustainability landscape, while also still supporting and promoting the individual efforts of our members. Yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Justine. Well, with those introductions out of the way, let's try and dive into some questions. So, Justine, I have my first question starting with you. You know, there's a lot of different reasons we need to be better stewards to our land, especially when it comes to seed treatment. And I know seed treatment, like you just mentioned, is new to you, but I'm interested a little bit more about how your title plays into this. How do you think stewardship and sustainability kind of tie together on different operations?
Yeah, so this is a question I get a lot. What's the difference between stewardship and sustainability? So I'll just maybe start off with some broad definitions. So for us, when we think about sustainability, our aim is really to do more with less. So being efficient with our inputs, especially our natural resources, as well as reducing our impact. All of this needs to be done without sacrificing our ability to serve a growing global population. So this really means honoring our social commitments and supporting a resilient economy as well as a resilient ag sector. So really we're thinking about activities that are more outcome focused, more future looking, really activities that kind of benefit society as a whole. And when I think about stewardship, we really consider stewardship to be a component of sustainability. And it's really about ensuring and demonstrating our collective actions are having a minimal impact on both people and planet. So it's really more practice-based, more prescriptive. It could have a regulatory component to it. It's really about doing our due diligence with the products that our members bring to market throughout the entirety of their life cycle. So all the way from R&D and manufacturing to disposal and recycling.
Perfect. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Justine. I have to admit, I was one of those people in the realm of wanting to know how they stewardship and sustainability can be different. So I'm glad you went through and explained that a little bit. Matt, now I know you at ASTA have gotten to tackle quite a bit under your term working with the Seed Treatment Committee. And I know over the last year, there's been a lot of concern over treated seed, including, some issues with treated seed and ethanol production, seed spills, etc. But I think the good news is the industry is responding. So how have you seen the industry respond to some of these events with treated seeds this year?
Well, certainly, Alex, we've seen a lot in the news lately, and we've seen a lot as a result of that. Going through various state legislatures and things of that nature. But the good news is that that our response, ASTA's response, members' response is really nothing new. We're always working at this, trying to keep this top of mind with members and other various stakeholders throughout the industry. So as I think about it, seed companies, I think, have always done a good job of telling the story of the importance of seed treatment stewardship, and not only the story of it, but how to do that to not only their employees, but right on down to the farmer level to make sure that seed goes in the ground safely. And then I think from an American Seed Trade Association standpoint, we just really do a lot to continue to educate around this topic. We've got a good story to tell. Seed treatment is one of the most efficient ways of applying a pesticide, right? So we're putting milligrams of active ingredient on an individual seed versus pounds of pesticide on an acre. And so what we try to do is really a lot of education out there with members, with stakeholders, various legislatures, et cetera.
That's very fair, because I feel like half of the battle is education, because I think people just don't understand seed treatments, especially at the government level. So I agree. I think that education is a really big part when it comes to stewardship. Now,
Yes.
Sorry, Matt, anything else?
I was just agreeing.
Perfect. And Justine, so I know as seed companies, which is most of our audience, we're all pretty familiar and we know the basics about seed treatment, stewardship. But what are some practical steps applicators might need to follow when working with treated seed?
Sure. So the program that we delivered, which is called the Accredited Seed Treatment Operations Standard, really focuses on the safe application of seed treatment products to seeds. So it's a relatively narrow slice of the seed treatment supply chain. There are 7 areas that the standard covers. The first 2 areas are more related to facility siting and structural requirements, so really more focused on new builds, but essentially looking that appropriate setbacks are put in place for new builds, looking at things like site access, signage, and lighting, both in and outside of the building, ensuring appropriate fire separation requirements are in place, and that containment is present in all the storage and treatment areas. The second 2 areas really cover operations and training, so assuring things like equipment are maintained, products are stored correctly with that containment I mentioned previously, that emergency equipment is present, that SOPs are in place, and that employees have been trained on the relevant aspects of their job. So both the general operation issues, but also the specifics of the seed treatment application process. The next 2 sections, sorry, a little bit more. Next 2 sections are really looking for documentation, which is everybody's favorite, and employee knowledge. So really making sure that employees are familiar with the SOPs and things like emergency response plans. And then the last section is really about the emergency response planning. So making sure that there's a plan in place, that it's updated, and that there's drills done on an annual basis. And so if I could just give a word of advice of our observations with the program for protocols that we see that underperform, it's really those protocols that are related to ongoing tasks. So things like maintaining equipment on a regular basis, updating emergency response plans, even simple things like your monthly fire extinguisher check. So it tends to be that once people are finished the audit, those items fall by the wayside, which is no judgment. That's just human nature, that these less pressing issues kind of fall off our desks. So I really encourage operators to think about how they can incorporate those activities into their work plan so that they become planned and scheduled events.
I think that's great advice, Justine, especially as you mentioned, the upkeep of your maintenance on your equipment. I'm sure people do that, but I'm sure there are also sometimes you might think, oh, it can wait another month or so, just like we would do with our cars. Oh, the oil change can wait another 100 miles or so. I got in an audience question that I actually think would be best suited for Matt, but Justine, if you'd like to jump in on it, feel free. It's from Ashley Robinson, and she wants to know, as a farmer, what should I be asking about or keeping in mind when it comes to seed treatment stewardship? Matt, I thought this would be best suited for you because I know this is one of your areas you work in pretty heavily.
Yeah, I do. So, so just a few things really at the farm level. One is making sure that we follow the instructions that are on that seed tag when we get it. So, when you buy that bag of seed that has a treatment on it, it comes with a tag or a label that has instructions on how to use that, how to use it, how to store it, how to dispose of it. All of the types of information that you would typically find on a regular pesticide label. And so if we follow that, then we're really doing our best job that we can. And so, make sure you've got the right PPE on. It'll tell you those types of things if any are required. And of course, one of the things that has popped up in the news lately, and we want to make sure that we're cognizant of, is seed spills. So we've seen that pop up in a few places. And so, as you think about a farmer, when you're loading a planter or maybe you have a malfunction on the planter, we want to make sure that if any treated seed spills on the ground, that we either get that cleaned up or get it buried where it's not accessible to wildlife.
Fair enough. I think that would not be something that you would always think of as well, is that if you spill, then it could be, as you mentioned, accessible to wildlife, which is just not good for anyone. You don't want to have something consume that shouldn't be consumed. Great, thank you so much. I actually had another question for both of you, and I think it's something that will continue this conversation that we've just been having about what growers need to know and what different people should keep in mind. But why do you think stewardship is something that needs to be talked about a little bit more often as it pertains to the seed industry? Justine, I might start with you and see if you have any thoughts, and then I'll move on to Matt afterwards.
Sure. So I kind of covered this a little bit in my intro, but I think, stewardship is really our shared responsibility to protect people and planet, and to ensure that we're delivering a sustainable agri-food sector. It's really about our license to operate, both as input providers like Croplife Canada and our members, but also as farmers on the ground. So we really all need to do our part along the supply chain to make sure that these products are stewarded appropriately, and that we're really demonstrating our commitment to protecting people and planet.
Thanks, Justine. Matt, anything else you'd like to add to that as well?
Well, first off, I think Justine said it very well, so thank you. I guess my perspective is when we talk about seed treatment stewardship, I like to think about what are the alternatives, right? And so the alternatives to not having these wonderful innovations of seed treatment that we have are not so great. So if you think about it from a farmer's standpoint, these seed treatments are bringing yield and protecting the crop at a fairly low cost. If you think about the environment, if we had to go back to using some older classes of chemistry that would be soil applied, that are less selective, less efficacious in many cases, and end up putting more pesticide on the ground, which is what we're trying to avoid, at least to a great extent with seed treatment. So really, it's all about that freedom to operate and make sure that we're doing the pieces we need to do to be able to continue using these important tools and not have to go back to something that we used in the past.
I think those are both excellent points to be made, and I like that you both mentioned that it's really a matter of making sure we can continue to operate the way that we need to operate in order to continue putting food on the table in a great manner. Matt, now I know that ASTA is putting together and renewing some of their treated seed stewardship resources. For anyone who doesn't know, ASTA has a lot of treated seed resources for you. The Seed Treatment Stewardship Guide is available on their website, but it's been a couple of years since that's been put together. So what do you think needs to be re-examined and updated in this, Matt?
Yeah, a good question, Alex. And it's something that we do on a regular basis. So, on a very base level, we're going to be looking at it to make sure that everything in there is still relevant and accurate. Has something changed since the last time that we updated it? We'll also take a look at it from the standpoint of any newer issues that have popped up. One of the things that we just talked about was seed spills, and so have we covered that in depth in the Seed Treatment Stewardship Guide? Do we need to add anything? Do we need to change anything there? And the other thing with updating these the resources on a regular basis is it brings the ability for us to take advantage of new members with new perspectives, right? So this is a member-led organization. We've got a lot of great staff. We've got a lot of great members who are subject matter experts. So every couple of years when we take a look at this Seed Treatment Stewardship Guide and try to update it, we're able to take advantage of new talent and fresh eyes and make the changes that we need to make.
Yeah, fair enough, Matt. I mean, every company experiences different things. So adding in those new experiences from new members' eyes, I'm sure just helps keep it up to snuff and being the best guide and resource that it can be. Now, Justine, I know even though we're next door neighbors from the US and Canada, I know Canada might have some different ideas to follow when it comes to seed treatment stewardships. What requirements are there for seed treaters and seed companies in Canada when it comes to treated seed?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, our program really applies to a fairly narrow slice of the supply chain. So it essentially applies to the storage of PCP regulated seed treatment products and the seed treatment application process as part of that operation. So PCP is just pest control products. So that's our registry process in Canada. The standards do not apply to the storage of treated seeds post-application, and they do not apply to farmers who are doing on-farm seed treatment to be applied exclusively within their farming operation. However, if a farmer was to contract a third-party applicator to treat seed, then that third party would also need to be accredited. And the farmer would need to complete a waiver with their ag retailer to ensure they have continued access to those seed treatment products. So all sites are required to be audited by a third party every 2 years. We, as AWASA, maintain a list of accredited sites, which is circulated to the Croplife Canada manufacturing and distribution members, as well as posted on the AWASA website. So AWASA is just that Agrochemical Warehousing Standards Association. Croplife Canada members and ag retails that are certified under our agrochemical warehousing standard commit to a no-ship policy, so whereby they will not ship any seed treatment products to sites that are not accredited, so on that list. The same applies to our warehousing program as well. In addition, we also deliver quality assurance audits. We have complaints, compliance, and enforcement policies in place as well to really ensure the integrity of the program.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Justine. I actually only have one more question left for you both today, but it was a question I originally was just going to post to Matt, but Justine, you actually might have some insight to it as well, so I'm going to leave it open to both of you. But as we continue to educate, we've already established education when it comes to seed treatment stewardship is really key. So as we continue to educate and talk more about seed treatment stewardship, how do you think that companies need to work and talk with their customers and applicators about treated seed? What do they need to start establishing? And Matt,
I'll let you take that first, Matt.
All right. Hey, that's fine. So, yeah, I mean, I think from the standpoint of seed companies working with within themselves and their farmer customers, just they need to keep doing what they've been doing, and they do a pretty darn good job of it. And that's really around education. So we have all these wonderful resources out there. Every bag of seed has a tag on it that you are required by law to follow. And you know, I've never met a retailer, I've never met a farmer or anyone from a seed company that didn't want to do the right thing. And so really it's about making sure that they understand what that right thing is and why to do that right thing. So it really comes down to that ongoing education, you know, whether it's at seed meeting kickoffs for the year or things of that nature, or, you know, working with growers in the field when they have those opportunities to just keep doing what they're doing. Make sure that they're delivering the message about seed treatment stewardship and how to comply. And not only that, but why it's so important. I think when we understand why things are important, we're more likely to abide.
Justine, anything you'd like to add on to that as well?
Yeah, I'll just change the question a little bit. Instead of talking to customers and applicators, I might suggest that we also need to be having these conversations with our regulators and our policymakers, possibly to some extent with the public, so that they really understand what's going into a stewardship program, all the aspects that are covered, all the responsibilities that we're taking on and delivering on, and making sure that they understand programs are in place, that they are complied to, and also I think a little bit to Matt's point, you know, what the alternatives are. What are the benefits of using seeded treat, and what treated seed, and what happens if we wouldn't be able to access those products. So I think there's a couple layers of communication that need to happen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Justine. I'm glad you brought up the fact that we also need to talk about this process and this education with regulators as well, because again, we've already kind of talked about that. It might not be something that every regulator actually knows of or understands very well. But I think that is about all the time we had for today. So thank you so much, Justine and Matt, for joining us. And I hope everyone in the audience has been able to take away something about seed treatment stewardship. I've certainly learned some more things. At the very least, I now know what the difference between stewardship and sustainability is. If you liked this topic, make sure to tune in next week. My coworker, Mark Sinkowitz, is going to be joined by a couple of different companies and talk about why DNA is an agronomic game changer for the seed industry. So it should really be insightful to hear about the breeding aspects and why DNA is so important to agronomic issues as well. We will see you then, but until then, hope you all have a wonderful week. Thanks, everyone.